In Undertale, certain fights can trigger a change in both the color and abilities of your soul. These transformations, commonly dubbed as soul modes by the community, have always confused me in terms of lore. Are they physically based? Are they magical? Why do they happen? Why can only certain characters do it? What causes the change in the soul's color? I believe I've developed a theory that answers these questions and more. It explains why certain monsters can activate soul modes, why they can use blue and orange attacks, as well as a lingering question about monsters and determination. Before I delve into this theory though, I have something to ask. Do you like video essays? Do you like analyses of games? Well, do I have a deal for you. It's this newfangled product called subscribing. Subscribing helps motivate me to make more content like this, as well as improve my craft. It helps you see more content that you like, as well as inspire me to make more content that I like to make. That's all I really wanted to say before jumping into this. 6 characters have the ability to change the color of the player's soul. Papyrus, Sans, Undyne, Alphys, Muffet, and Mad Mew Mew. That's quite a wide range of characters, both in terms of plot relevance and power level. Before any deeper lore ramifications can be asked, a separate question needs to be answered. What are soul modes exactly? There wouldn't really be much to explore of this topic if these modes were all easily explained by physical items. Fortunately, this does not seem to be the case, as at least Sans, Papyrus, and Mew Mew all affect the player's soul that can only be explained by magic. It's not like Papyrus drops an anvil on you or something, as funny as that would be. He clearly just sends a wave of blue bones at you before altering your soul. Unfortunately, this question is not so easily answered with Undyne, Alphys, and Muffet. All 3 examples could have easy explanations that involve some kind of physical item granting you a new ability. Undyne might have supplied you with a spear to block her incoming attacks. Alphys may have installed a laser blaster into your phone. And Muffet could have caught you in a purple spiderweb. To determine what is going on here exactly, we're gonna have to dig deeper into each of these 3 examples. The easiest of these cases to answer is Alphys. In all neutral routes where you don't kill Undyne the Undying, she will upgrade your phone with a bunch of gadgets and gizmos before leaving her lab at the start of Hotland. Included amongst these is a glowing yellow button that will flip your soul around and tint it yellow for both Metaton fights. So, this case is cut and dry then, right? The phone is clearly the object giving you the ability to shoot projectiles, and not some kind of magic being emitted by Alphys. If that were the case, let me ask you a different question. If it was coming from the phone, why would your soul not be yellow in any of the core or subsequent Asgore encounters? The phone is in your possession the entire time, and it gives Frisk a significant advantage when dodging attacks. You could say that it's purely a gameplay related choice. Toby Fox obviously didn't want to add a new tool to your kit so late into the game, which is a fair enough explanation in my head, but let's consider the only other time the yellow soul mode appears in the game. When you are saving everyone's souls at the end of the true pacifist route, helping Alphys will turn your soul yellow. There's a common thread in all 3 of these encounters. Alphys is involved in the fight somehow. In this Metaton fight, she's making direct contact with you over the phone. In the Metaton EX fight, she is directly locked outside the room. And in the soul fight, you are directly fighting her. She is the emanator of the soul mode. When Frisk is not close to Alphys, it's impossible for her to apply her magic onto them, so their soul stays red. The phone may be transmitting the magic, but it is not the origin of it. The same logic regarding the true pacifist route still works with Undyne. She didn't give you a spear to carry around, and yet your soul still turns green. The only thing suggesting that the spear was a physical object was the fact that the shield vaguely looks like a spear. This isn't to say that the shield couldn't have been physically given to Frisk at the beginning of the fight, but from what we know about Undyne, her spears are how her magic expresses itself. Similar to how Sans and Papyrus can manifest bones, Undyne manifests spears. As such, the green soul mode can only exist within the vicinity of Undyne. The moment you leave her sphere of influence, your soul goes back to red. The effect being purely magical in origin is made even more clear by Undyne the Undying. No way in hell would she give you a spear to block her attacks out of her own volition if you had already struck her down at that point. The green soul prevents Frisk from moving. She's using her magic to keep Frisk in place. The shield is just something that manifests with it. Let's change topic and talk about Merg's favorite Undertale character, Muffet. Muffet is the character we know the least about. She is a mini-boss, and there's very little we can glean about her abilities. She will cover Frisk in what appears to be purple fluid before restricting their movement to 3 lines on the grid. Muffet is barely elaborated on in the lore, so it's pretty much a toss-up on why she has the ability to turn your soul purple. It doesn't matter though, because we can explain 5 of the other soul modes as originating entirely from magic. Logically, this one should be too. While we don't see Muffet or the purple soul mode again past her fight, it can easily be said that this isn't her literally trapping you in a web. It's more of a magical binding to restrict your movement. Now that we've established the where of soul modes, it's time to ask a different question. How? Probably sounds like a weird question, but magic tends to manifest a certain way in Undertale. Monster magic almost always appears as bullets shaped by the individual's personality. These attacks all seem quite different from each other though. A barrage of bones, a spear slash, purple tea, a button on the phone? All these are quite different, and yet they all trigger soul modes. One character I haven't really touched on is Mad Mew Mew, as she's a bit of an outlier amongst all the major boss characters. All of these other characters, Sans, Papyrus, Undyne, Alphys, even Muffet to an extent, all take pretty large leadership roles within the Underground's government. All of them, Sans, take up the moniker of ruler depending on the circumstance. So it's safe to say that they're all outliers in terms of monster strength. But then we get to Mad Mew Mew, who throws a wrench into the whole thing. She's not uniquely powerful, nor does she have a significant role in the Underground's leadership. Her power to split your soul and make it Joy-Con color doesn't replicate it anywhere else either. She used to be the Mad Dummy before finding her true body in the Mew Mew doll, so maybe looking into that fight can help us find some answers. Nope. Her magic is expressed through cotton balls and rockets? I mean, the rockets do use red in their sprite, which is quite a rarity, which is somewhat interesting. This is a dead end. She doesn't even do anything to transform your soul, other than emit a flash of light. Huh. That has to be it.
Hold it!
The flash of light has to be how the soul modes work. Before your soul splits in two, a flash of light will fill the screen. Weird enough, flashes of light are a consistent feature among all the soul mode change attacks. To turn you blue, Papyrus needs to barrage you with an attack that's entirely blue bones. While this attack almost always doesn't hurt you, it does guarantee Frisk gets hit with a flash of blue light, activating the soul mode. At the start of the Undyne fight, she will slash at you with her spear, emitting a green wave of light. It happens again when she wants to remove the soul mode from you. In every fight involving Alphys, the button on your phone is always glowing yellow. It's as if Alphys herself is transmitting the power to you through the phone. Muffet fully envelops Frisk in a kind of purple substance. This could just be how she expresses her soul mode magic, and the fluid is actually a form of light. Finally, and this one is perhaps my favorite example, we have Sans. The first thing Sans will do in battle is turn your soul blue and manipulate gravity to slam you against the ground. You may be wondering where the flash of light is with him then. Well, zoom in here. Pay close attention to his right eye. You'll see that it emits flashing blue and yellow light. The blue light is almost definitely Sans applying the blue soul mode to Frisk, as earlier established with Papyrus's blue attack. The yellow light is not so clear cut. What we know about yellow is that it represents the trait of justice. The only other time yellow manifests is through Alphys, and you clearly aren't wielding a pea shooter against Sans. This might be a stretch, but what if the yellow light is actually Sans inflicting the karmic retribution onto you? Think about it. Nobody else has the ability to apply KR to you, and it would fit perfectly with what justice represents. Alphys' interpretation of justice is more so based on human media's displays of justice, gunslinging cowboys who shoot at the bad guys. Going off that, it would imply that monsters can wield different types of soul magic depending on how they wish to express themselves. I believe the only time it's seen is with Sans though, so unfortunately I have no kind of proof outside of him. After all that, we now have a pretty clear-cut explanation on how these soul modes happen. Light from monster magic shines onto Frisk's soul. You know, that shining light effect kinda reminds me of something else. In the first chapter of Deltarune, the fun gang eventually makes their way to Card Castle to fight the Chaos King. Notably, you are but a few rooms away from the Dark Fountain, something stated by Queen to emanate vast amounts of determination. During the fight, you can act as Chris to power up yourself, Susie, and Ralsei's normal abilities. The abilities Courage, Twin Heal, and Red Buster are temporarily granted to the party by these actions. A couple things are important here. First, the flavor text regarding those moves. For Chris, their normal talk just becomes more powerful. However, for Ralsei and Susie, it specifically mentions that your soul is shining onto the two of them. Isn't that interesting? Where have we seen this exact type of ability before, where a magical source of light emanating from one's soul changes the abilities of the light's target? Yes, viewers, I am arguing that Chris is capable of giving other characters, specifically monsters, a red soul mode. At least, they can if in the vicinity of the Dark Fountains. The first thing that clued me into this was specifically Susie's ability when powered up by the Red Soul. Her Rude Buster attack becomes Red Buster instead. The attack only changes to this when directly influenced by the power of the Red Soul. Another hint is how the attack's damage is classified. It goes from Rude damage to Red damage. Now, this could just be a joke, but I'm gonna take it completely straight. Susie's Rude Buster, when infused with the power of Chris's soul, does damage as the same type as their soul. Now this begs a different question. Do all the soul modes change the damage type of corresponding magic attacks? Like, for example, do Frisk's Pea Shooter and Chris's Big Shot deal yellow damage? I think that's a different rabbit hole that I don't really want to touch, so I'm gonna move on from it. Anyways, I believe this demonstration of colors reflecting onto other people's souls is equivalent to that found within Undertale. On a related note, this also shows us what a red soul mode would do. It would presumably imbue the wielder with an amplification of their normal abilities, far beyond what they can normally achieve at their current state. Perhaps that's the reason Frisk and Chris are so strong, despite being nothing more than young humans. The red soul is capable of some impressive feats, literally being able to come back from death. They aren't just capable of rewinding time, but literally preventing their own death within the current timeline. That's the power of determination. This brings me to a different topic. Sure, it makes sense that the strength of the very powerful Red Soul could shine onto other souls if given the right conditions, but what about all of the monster souls being able to influence your soul's color throughout Undertale? Surely these much weaker expressions of magic must pale in comparison to the strength of the Red Soul, right? To answer that, a different question needs to be asked. What actually separates a monster soul from a human soul? In lore, monsters and humans are separated mostly by what they're composed of. A monster soul acts as a magical binding agent to a scant amount of physical matter. They are unable to retain as much mass, so they cannot handle much determination. Humans, on the other hand, are composed mostly of matter and contain very little magic. This allows them to handle determination much better than any monster. This isn't to say monsters can handle no determination, however. They surely can, but not a lot. Undyne is proof of this. She has the most determination of any monster, and yet doesn't start melting until she's fighting with death herself. The Amalgamates didn't start melting together until Alphys injected too much of the stuff into their bodies. In both cases, they were fine until a critical point was reached. We also know monsters can naturally produce the stuff. Think back to Undyne as my first example. My other example though is with the barrier. It's stated in the game that it takes every monster's soul to equal the strength of one human soul. Asriel is only able to break the barrier after absorbing the 6 human souls and literally every monster soul. The barrier can only be broken through the power of determination. So this means that monsters must have some amount in their bodies, just not nearly as much as humans. This now brings us back to the original question. How can monsters manipulate your soul's color? Well, I think it's pretty clear, based on what we've discussed. Monsters are pulling from their own source of determination. My main piece of evidence for this comes from the fact that Ralsei and Susie are not powered up by Chris unless within the vicinity of a dark fountain. The dark fountain is a boundless stream of determination, giving life to darkners. Remember that these soul modes come from magic, something which humans aren't inherently keen on. They need training before they can even wield magic on the same level as a monster. It's likely then that the dark fountain is amplifying the effects of determination on Chris's body, allowing them to express their more magical abilities without further training. The strong monsters, being more in tune with their magic, likely don't need as much training to manipulate soul color, as they can pull from their pre-existing determination to do so. The monsters with more determination are the ones able to manipulate these traits easier. This actually raises a different question. Are all monsters capable of manipulating soul traits? I think for the most part, yes. Consider this attack from Papyrus. It's his fabled blue attack. It turns you blue. Now look at this attack from Dago. This attack is also blue, in exactly the same way as Papyrus's. The only difference between the two of them, aside from expression, is how Papyrus can change the color of your soul and Doggo can't. I believe both of them are manipulating soul traits here, but to different degrees. With Doggo, his blue attacks are channeling patience into his attacks, but with Papyrus, they're channeling integrity to manipulate how you move around the battle box. Have you ever noticed that monster attacks and monster souls are almost exactly the same color? Well, I believe this is because it's a direct expression of their soul's magic. In a similar vein, when an enemy like Pyrope uses an orange attack, it's channeling bravery, or when a Washua uses a green attack, it's channeling kindness. All monsters are capable of wielding determination this way, but how much they do so depends on how much determination they have, and how much they choose to express it. Monsters in the ruins are very frail, so it stands to reason that they have very little determination in their bodies. Most monsters we face outside of combat also likely have very little determination. Royal Guard enemies are capable of creating some complex blue attacks, so it's clear their level of determination is much higher than something like Frogget. The strongest of monsters are freely able to manipulate their determination as they see fit, which is likely why they fall into positions of importance in the underground. I believe I've answered every question I aimed to answer at the start of the video. There's only one loose thread I feel isn't resolved. Why can Mad Mew Mew manipulate your soul in this way? All of these other examples of soul mode users have been the most prominent, the most important, and the most powerful monsters in the underground. Leaders of their community, high-ranking military members, the highest position in the land. Why, of all these monsters, does Mad Mew Mew have the power to alter your soul? She goes well and beyond the capabilities most normal monsters possess. I think it has to do with who Mad Mew Mew is. She was once the Mad Dummy, living her life in a body that, while not unpleasant, didn't make her happy. She always yearned for something more, thinking that going to the surface would be the only way to reach this end. That was, until she found Mew Mew. The life-size plush doll piqued her interest, and eventually made it her own. She yearned to become one with it. One could even say that she was determined to do so. Much like Undyne's power grew immensely as she refused to give up the fight, even in her final moments, Mad Mew Mew's power grew as a result of wanting to so badly become one with a new form that made her happy. I doubt the Mew Mew doll made her stronger. The only difference between the Mad Dummy and Mad Mew Mew was how badly she wanted to be herself. That is the power of determination. The desire for something so strong, it rewrites your fate. This concludes my explanation of the soul mode theory. If you have any feedback, further thoughts, and ideas, share them down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, I would greatly appreciate you liking and subscribing. Thank you to my channel members Don the Silv and Some Ness. They get access to my videos early, as well as some exclusive emojis on the channel. I've been Luxy, and I'll see you later.